Hello and welcome to Captivate the Mic with Elaine Williams. You are in for such a treat. I am so delighted to have this phenomenal woman on my show. We met through a mutual comedian, Craig Shoemaker. This woman has toured the country. She's a superstar. She's danced with CNC Music Factory. She sang with Barbara Streisand. Frankie Ann, I am so excited that you're here. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. And I have to make clarification. I didn't dance with CNC Music Factory. I sang my own single. I opened up for them.
Okay,
I
I
don't want to
stand
take credit.
corrected.
I don't want to take credit from any dancers who are
But
back there working their butts
okay,
off.
so just if you're in your 50s, I loved CNC Music Factory. Gonna make you sweat to you. Like I just remember just jamming out to them. I loved them. I thought they were so cool. And yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. My single Stand Up had just come out, and I was working in Quad Recording Studios in Manhattan, where Martha Washington was recording one of her original sing. Now Martha Wash was the vocalist. Everybody dance. Now she was the actual singer, and and Freedom was working at the studio. This is like mixing up time frames, but Freedom had been working. I knew Freedom from when I was just producing and writing in my own studio there at Quad. He was working at Quad, then he became part of CNC Music Factory. Then Martha came to me and they asked me to choreograph the Martha tour, which ended up coinciding when my record was coming out. And so that's how I also ended up with CNC. It was all these things happening very quickly at the same time. So ended up touring with my record, Stand Up, as the opening act. So that was really exciting.
That is one thing I really want to talk about. So we met a couple of years ago and then we over Zoom. I was taking a class and then we met when I was in LA and visiting my cousin and had this fabulous brunch. You have such an interesting, passionate, beautiful story. And I think that a lot of people could get inspiration and comfort and motivation from it. Can you just tell people a little bit about your how you started on the East
Yeah,
Coast?
I mean,
I
I
think
started young. I was in the studios. A very dear friend of mine to this day, her name is Lisa Ratner, a very reputable and successful songwriter, found me in high school. And so her and another incredible vocalist, Sandy Farina, that was Lisa Ratner and Sandy Farina, found me in high school. She was substitute teaching, and they had written a song for Streisand. They had written a song for Dolly Parton. They were up and coming young songwriters. So she was just supplementing teaching. And she grabbed me and this other friend of mine and brought us into the studios. And my first foray in singing was doing backup with Sandy on jingles. And Lisa went on to do more jingles with Sandy and went on to do more music and write hit songs.
so some people might not know what a jingle is. So can
Mhm.
you explain that?
So a jingle is a commercial, an audio commercial, such as Sandy did. I don't know if I can sing them on and without having any kind of beeps online, but commercials for major companies. Sandy did Budweiser, she did J.C. Penney. The one I did was TWA and 7 Up. I did
Okay.
backups for
Yeah,
those
so it's jingles, it's
the
singing, it's music that was on commercials. So if you booked a national one, you were woo. So I just thought a lot of people might not know what a jingle is.
and they were major writers in that industry. And so that's how I got my start in the music industry that way. I was playing accordion before that and music before
Okay,
that and
wait.
dance
Can you
before
just
that.
back up? So you were in a World Cup accordion contest?
Yes, my twin and I, we had a cousin who actually like a third cousin, my mother's cousin of a cousin, who was highly reputable, Madalena Belfiore in the accordion world. And so when I first wanted to start on the violin, I brought that home. They pulled that away from me immediately. No string instruments for you. And then they put me on the accordion with my twin, and we went off and did competition after competition. And I think we were 17. I was still in
Wow.
high school, and it was in Washington, D.C., the competition, and we took first place in the World Cup Coupe Mondiale competition. So anybody out there who used to play the accordion as a kid, I might have known you because it was a very small circuit, but yet nationwide.
That's
Who
who
knew?
knew about the accordion. Okay, so now I want to know about the dance. I love the dance story with your teacher and the mentor and
That's a deep story. I was going into high school in on our school system. I was raised in Maplewood in South Orange community in New Jersey, and the school systems, we went to ninth grade in the junior high and then 10, 11, 12 in high school. And I was always fighting my weight as a kid. And I wanted to dance, and I was always watching musicals were a big deal for me, and I wanted to dance. I wanted to do what they did. My family, we didn't have a lot of money. We had a lot of kids, 5 kids, and a lot of pressures financially. So I babysat to raise some money to take an adult school summer school program through the high school system. And the high school dance teacher was teaching it that summer. So I was taking the class twice a week and I was just loving it. And I think prior to that, all I did was like a ballet class locally, which I also babysat to take lessons, but I was not trained. And by the end of the summer, every class after our dance class through the summer, we would swim. She was also the swim coach, and we had access to the swimming pool. And it was a few weeks, maybe 6 or 8 weeks, maybe probably 8 weeks. The last class, I had auditioned for the company. I forgot to say that I had auditioned for the company at the end of my year in ninth grade, and I did not make it into the company. And it's a company that in high school you would give up your lunch period. You would eat lunch in the studio. There was a dance studio, full on floors and mirrors. Her name was Janet Hicks. She fought for that with the school system and had that built out. And we would literally give up our lunch and dance for 2 hours and train. And she would bring people in from Manhattan, and I didn't get in, and I was terrified and I was scared. And yet I took the summer school program, and at the end of the summer, she swam up to me after our last class and invited me to be part of the company. And yeah, that was pretty special. So
That's amazing. And then
I
I love it that she would drive you into Manhattan on a Saturday
you have. Oh my
and
goodness.
you would you would work with Broadway choreographers at Steps and Broadway dance. And then
JoJo's Dance Factory.
she would drive you back and then you would teach everybody the combination.
She would
But
drive me in on a Saturday. It was Saturday morning. She would come pick me up from my family home, and then we would drive back into Manhattan. And I had no idea the geography at the time, what was actually happening. But she was literally driving west 25 to 30 minutes to pick me up to go east into Manhattan, another
right.
45 to an hour. And then I take the class. It was JoJo's Dance Factory at the time. And then she would take me back west home, where she would then have to go back east to her home. That was a lot for somebody to do. And I didn't recognize that for years. I didn't understand it for years. I was a
Isn't it
kid.
funny? What a gift. And so you got to be exposed to all of this beautiful talent in New York City. And then they say if you want to learn something, teach it. So coming to teach it, that must have been amazing.
It was wonderful. And yet it was frustrating because, again, I was not trained.
Right.
And I
You're
remember
late to the party, which I can relate. I became a dancer at 19. I always felt like, oh, I was scrambling.
I broke down one day. I was crying because I was frustrated. I wasn't getting the combination. I'm like, I'm never going to be good at this. I can't do this. She goes, child, just relax. She goes, this is an intermediate advanced class and you're a beginner. And then I was like, what are you doing taking me into these classes? But she saw me. She saw my talent.
You saw your heart.
She saw my heart, she saw my talent, she saw me, and I worked to develop, and teaching it to the my peers on a Monday was a great opportunity.
I
And then I
love it.
was able to choreograph.
Frankie Ann, I cried a lot too in my dance company. I remember just feeling such passion and a frustration that didn't have more training and technique. So I love that. I feel like we have so much in common. Okay,
So
so
it's our passion. You have the passion. It's our passion that drove our feet, not the technique. And then later the technique came in because then I realized I got to get some technique if I'm going to keep
yeah,
doing. Yeah.
absolutely. So you're going from that, and then fast forward, what's the next big? I know there's a million little things,
Oh my
but
God.
can you get us to, I don't know, the
Well,
CNC factory or
when I graduated high school, I ended up getting a scholarship to a dance program down at Duke. And I went there And then I left and I went back because I wanted to be in New York. And I got my first job at the Playboy Club in Manhattan. That was my
Oh
very
my God.
first paying job. I was 18 years old. I was making $600 a week. It was a fortune. I was rich. And I was going to college again. And I was going to college with no eyelashes and red hair because of the boa from Cabaret. The number of Cabaret was dyeing my hair. And every time we put false eyelashes on, he'd take them off. So I'd be in school in the daytime, like with no eyes. So then went from there to going on tour. I auditioned for a band, a top 40 band, and I loved singing. I wanted to be more of a singer and be in the front. And then I worked through that. And then I fast forward, joined Lisa again and got into more songwriting. She helped teach me how to do songwriting. And then I went off and had other partners who then helped me. And I got to stand up when I had the recording studio at Quad. I went on tour, and I told you that part about going out with CNC Music Factory, doing talk shows. I was on, oh gosh, I was on Every Day with Joan London. I was on
Wow.
Party USA, and things were taking off. And then I was early 20s at that point.
Early 20s.
Then
Okay. But
about
nationally touring and being on TV.
on TV, and then I went to California. I was with two pop groups. That one was called Pajama Party, and they had a hit record called Yo No Sé, and that hit the Billboard charts. I think it was top 60 on the pop charts. It was a hit pop record nationally, and I was called in to choreograph that. And when they heard me singing, there was one of the singers, something happened, whatever, and then they offered me the job to be in the group. So I toured with them, and I also toured with a group called Amaretto, which had a hit record called Clave Rock, and that's actually on my Instagram page, that cut. And then I got into the solo thing with Sama as the solo artist, went to California, and then I was paralyzed. And that's when everything just really messed with my head. And
Yeah. So I'm making it. I'm on TV. I'm touring. Woo! And
then you're not walking. Yeah.
oof.
Yeah, I
So then
crushed
what
it.
happened?
What happened was I had to take care of my body. I couldn't move. I remember at one point, I was, when it happened on tour, they put me in a body brace, and I was so stubborn, man, Elaine. I was so stupid and stubborn. And I said, no, before I leave, I need to do this one show. And they're like, what? You can't, what are you doing? And I said, put me in the brace, carry me on stage, put me on a stool, close the curtain. And when the song starts, I'm going to ask, who wants to dance? Flooded the stage. Nobody saw me sitting there.
I remember this story when I very first met you. Yeah.
Yeah, and then at the end of the song, I opened my jacket and I exposed my brace.
So you really improvised.
Yeah, and then I realized I can't do this. This is crazy making. I
Right.
can't have people carry me around. And so I had to heal and go through therapy, and walked, I remember, 2 miles an hour on a treadmill. And I didn't think I was ever going to get back at it, but then I did. The body is an incredible machine if we take care of it, our brain, our spirit, our attitude. And my career and my life basically was threatened at that point. And I'm like, a whole nother being of me showed up in here. And I was like, I'm not done yet.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So fast forward. So you've worked on documentaries, you've been a producer for major podcasts, you've acted, you've done many things. And if you could give a super tip for somebody who wants to be more creative or who wants to get more into film or stand up or whatever, what are a couple of super tips you would tell them?
Wow. So because of where I'm at today in my life, no one could have told me this when I was 25. So if someone's listening who's 25, maybe you can hear it, but if not, that's okay too. But what I've learned is that I cared so much. I wanted so badly. And it was too much. It was for the wrong reasons. I wanted to be loved. I wanted to be seen. I
Oh,
wanted.
I'm so resonating with this. Yes.
And yeah, and so I did everything, as you said. Like I went from singer, dancer, actress. I moved to Hollywood.
Voiceover. I'll do
I
this.
ended up,
Yeah.
yeah, and then I went back and did Broadway tours, and I sang with Streisand. I did this. I did all these things because I wanted to do them, and I'm grateful. I'm super grateful There was a time when I'm like, I was crying with my mom. I don't know who I am. I'm doing all these things. She goes, "You're all those things." And it was okay. And it was like, all my friends have a title: singer, dancer, actress, director. I'm doing all this stuff. That's okay too. But just watch the motive, what's behind the want. And today, because I'm more mature emotionally, spiritually, all of that, I do what feels good with the good people that I want to do it with, which is really important. And I'm not here to convince you, which is what was driving me earlier in my early days. I was trying to convince you to hire me as
Oh
opposed
my
to just
gosh. Please
being,
love me. I need validation.
yeah,
Yeah,
as
it
opposed
was
to just
so,
being okay with who I am and being talented and using my talent to live my life as opposed to pushing it on you. And that's the difference. That's being totally honest. And now who would have known? Like, I just did this thing on Instagram. I was like, I realized what's the irony of my life? My first record called Stand Up, opening for an internationally acclaimed hit record and group on my first TV show out of Philadelphia, Dance Party USA. And here I am, fast forward, doing stand up comedy, opening up for international comedians. One having been from Philly, that's Craig Shoemaker, and now on tour with Mike Marino. So it's like this whole turn of events in full circle with my life. I am so grateful because I get to use those other skills and carry them with me and still do it. I still have projects that I'm working on and hope to get some more financing to finish, like the documentaries I've done and
yeah.
I'm not done with that. I'm not done
But
with that.
I love it. And I love that anytime I'm speaking in front of 20-year-olds, I'm like, this is the decade to make the mistakes, to meander off here, to go backwards, to realize, oh, not doing that, tried that. Not. I think you were driven, maybe not always by the best motives. I can relate to that of like seeking validation or just, I just loved performing so much. And, and as painful as the rejection could be, I also feel like it gave me such an interesting experience. Like running around New York City, auditioning in these crazy little offices, and some casting directors would hold auditions in their apartment. And just going to these buildings you would never know, normally you would never go to. And it was so fascinating, and getting to see parts of the city you might not have seen. And I love touring because you go to places and sometimes you're like, okay, I never need to come back here. But you have these really fascinating experiences, and I think that's so delicious. And I think that's what I'm hearing in your story for sure.
No, I'm grateful. I am super grateful. And I just want to say if there are 20-year-olds listening today, or even any young talent, no matter how old you are, be very careful, be smart, just use your brains and take care of yourself to in any business.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna add on to that because some people might be like, be careful. So there are charlatans, like in any industry. And if anyone is ever saying you have to pay me to go get you headshots or you have to pay me to get this audition, you should run because that is not how the industry works. And as a woman, I'll never forget this, Frankie Ann, and then we're coming back to you. As I was always running around open calls, small calls, big calls. And for some reason, I brought my boyfriend with me to this one audition. And I'm like, thank you, God. So we get to this, and it's this guy's apartment, and it's a very creepy scene. And I look on his table, and he's got stacks of beautiful young actresses with their numbers, with their addresses, like stacks and stacks of headshots and resumes. And he's just some producer. And I remember I just got the heebie-jeebies. And I remember my boyfriend was like, are they usually like this? And I was like, no. Usually they're at an office or there's other people. So, if you ever feel like your spidey sense is going off, you can always excuse yourself and leave graciously. If it doesn't feel right at any point, stop, turn around, and bring a friend with you, because unfortunately there are charlatans and bad people in the industry. And they're beautiful people and amazing people, like how I got to meet Frankie Ann. So anyway, I just wanted to jump onto that. Frankie Ann, tell us, I know you have some really cool things coming up. Can you tell us about what you're excited about?
Yes, I am touring with Mr. Mike Marino. He's an incredibly hysterical comedian. He's internationally known.
I
He's
knew
a
him. I worked with him a million years ago. So I was like, Mike Marino.
Yeah,
So
and he's out of Jersey, my original home state. And I met him through, no, not through Craig. I met him actually through another friend, but he knows Craig. But anyway, so I've been working with him over the last few years, in and out. And last year I did the tour with him, and I was honored to be able to open up for him on several shows. And this year even more. And I'm really grateful for the opportunities. Super grateful because here's the interesting thing about stand-up comedy, okay? I have sang, danced, act, film, television, Broadway tours, you name it. What do you all do? We rehearse. We learn. We go to
you
rehearsals.
practice, you
We
warm up,
practice.
you
Yeah.
sweat. You
And
come to
that's
dance
fun.
class with 53 layers on. People don't know this. So you come to class and you're all bundled up because you're cold. And then as you warm up at the bar, you slowly peel away the layers. But some people are like, what are you doing? Are you stripping? Like I've been in yoga class and people were like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I'm just warming up. But a
Yeah.
lot of people don't know that.
So we get to we that's the rehearsal process. That's the learning process. So I
Right.
entered into stand-up comedy, which was, by the way, the greatest fear I have ever faced in my life. And I say this
Amen, sister.
like I repelled off an 80-foot mountain cliff in Mexico alone with a bunch of strangers who I went to the bathroom with and said, here's my parents' phone number in case the rope breaks, call them because I realized I'm in another country. But my point is, that was nothing compared to the fear I faced within myself doing when I said, I want to do this. I produced a series called Live Nude Comedy for Showtime back in 2009 or 10. Great comedians and Whitney Cummings and Crystalia and there are just so
Oh, it's
many
so great.
talented comedians. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. How do they do that? How do they do that? So I went on with my life as directing and producing more then. And then one day I said, bucket list. First was tango, learned that. Next was stand-up comedy. Yeah, I wanted a tango because I was always dancing and nobody ever wanted to dance with me because I was a dancer,
I
but I
love
couldn't
tango.
follow. So I went to one of those schools and he goes, what do you want to do? You know how to dance? I said, no, I want to learn how to follow.
Which is
So
very hard, especially if you've been a woman who's had to drive,
I'm
to allow yourself to be led. Woo!
a
Right?
solo dancer. I was Anita in West Side Story. It's like, you choreographed it. I just did it. I didn't know how to follow. Anyway,
Right.
so did that. And then stand-up comedy was next. So I get to this. I'm like, okay, how do you write your own material? Who's teaching that? And I went to classes or coaches, and they're like, no, don't do that. Do it this way. And I'm like, but how did you get there?
They don't always, yeah.
You're not going to be in my pocket every time I'm trying to write a bit. So fast forward, there's no school, there's schools, but there's no school, and there's no rehearsal hall, there's open mics, and then there's shows. And so I drill like crazy. I walk miles and miles drilling and drilling and drilling and talking
Do
out
you
loud,
say it out loud? I like to say it out like,
out loud. Yeah.
do
And
you
then
do warm-ups?
you go on stage and I record it and I listen back and I'm brutally honest now with myself. I'm like, I like that joke, but they don't. I think I need to cut it. So that's the difference with singing, dancing, acting, producing, directing. You can go to school for that. There's
I-
really no
So I had a teacher tell me once, one of the reasons you always want to record is it's never quite as good as it felt, and it's never quite as bad as you thought. Like I remember having the sensation of I just ate it, and then listening and going, "Oh, I did get laughs. I just didn't remember, or I expected a much bigger laugh." And then I've also had the feeling of, "Oh, I was so great," and then I listened to it and like, "You're okay." So do you is has that been your experience or?
one thing I remember I was taught when I was doing theater was if you are in your head, you're not in the moment. If you hear the audience, you're not doing your job. Because being present, and that's the thing about me drilling, it's like to get to the point where I'm not at all thinking about the bits, the jokes, the words. that it's such a natural part of my subconscious that I'm present with the audience. And that's the difference also, is that I'm breaking the fourth wall. When you're acting, you're not breaking that wall. In comedy, you're breaking that wall. You're having a conversation with an audience who's communicating through laughter. Hopefully nobody's heckling through words, but that happens. But the conversation is in that place, so that if I'm in my head, which I have been, because I'm only doing
We're
this for
human. You're
7 years,
human.
not 30 years like Mike or Craig. When you do it over and over again, it just gets to be more natural, which is what these guys that do it so well make it look like everything is scripted. Everything.
It
And
is. People go, oh, the other day, and it's no, that was 20 years ago, or yeah. And the goal is to make it feel like these are just coming off spontaneously. Easy for me to say, yeah. And but it's scripted and crafted and practiced and punched or not or thrown away. And
yeah.
I'm Frankie. And okay, so you have some shows coming up. Can you tell us? Can you tell us if anybody's on the East Coast? Where do they go? What do they
Yes,
do?
if you're on the East Coast, I'm going to be back in New Jersey this week, providing this airs this week. It's October 4th. We have two shows. I'll be opening for Mike Marino at the Roxbury Arts Alliance Theater in Succothana, New Jersey. Let me say that again. Succothana, S-U-C-C. No, I'm not even going to try it.
I'm gonna
Succothana,
say
look
that
it
right.
up. And then we have a show on the 9th. It's a Hope Fest. It's a benefit where I'll be hosting that with Mike and his brother Paul Marino. The Paul Marino Band will be on that show as well. And then the big audience at the amazingly historic former vaudevillian theater called the Brook Arts Theater, Brook Arts Center Theater in Bound Brook, New Jersey, is on October 11th at 8 p.m. That's one show. That's got nearly almost 1,000 seats. It's a big theater. So you can go to mikemarino.net for tickets, or look at my Instagram, which is Frankie underscore Ann with an E underscore productions. Don't ask me why I did it that way, but Frankie underscore Ann underscore productions, and all that information's on my Instagram page.
Okay, that's great. I'm so excited. And you had such a windy, adventurous journey. Is there any final super tip or words of wisdom that you would like the listeners to take?
So something I just wrote recently was thinking about not finishing, falling down, trying to stay in that race, but falling down, breaking my back, or having this other detour that I didn't expect. We can't see around corners. I cannot have a crystal ball tell me what my life is going to look like. No matter
Right.
how much I think I'm going to win that race or get that job, if it wasn't for me falling, I would not be who I am today. Resilient, hungry, focused. And that is part of what I accept today, is that I go with the flow. I do the best I can with what I have today. And then I have to let go of that outcome and deal with it as it flows. So that's
Ah,
you can be a winner if you can
that
accept
is
the fall.
beautiful. That is so beautiful, Frankie. And thank you so much for sharing your stories. I'm going to put all the links and dates in the show notes. And if you are listening or watching and have somebody who is stuck in their artistic journey, or they just feel stuck, please send them this episode and subscribe, rate, and review so that we can keep getting out the word out. My mission is to help heal the world, one joke, one video, one story, one other comedian at a time, and I need a whole crew to do it. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you again, Frankie Ann. This was great.
Thanks for
Okay,
having
everybody, bye for now.
me. Bye.
Bye.